There is a cabin standing in Cades Cove, Tennessee, on a bench of flat ground with the Smokies rising up dark behind it, and it was put together around 1822 by a man named John Oliver. Chestnut and yellow poplar, hewn square with a broadaxe, no nails holding the walls, no screws, no glue. No metal fastener of any kind in the corners of that building. 200 winters have come down off that ridge and hit it broadside. Ice has swelled in every check in that timber and let go again 200 times. The National Park Service still keeps the doors open and lets you walk in. Now go into your own house tonight and put your hand on the corner of a bookshelf. Push it sideways. Feel that little bit of give, that quarter-inch of racking, that faint sound like a knuckle popping. That shelf is maybe 11 years old. 200 years against 11. Same material. Wood is wood. And I want to be careful here, friend, because this is where near everybody gets it wrong. It wasn't the glue. The glue takes the blame every time. Man's project comes apart at the corner, and he stands there saying he should have used the stronger glue, the one in the brown bottle instead of the yellow one, so he goes and buys it. The glue took the blame, the direction of the wood got the credit. Because here's the twist. John Oliver had no glue at all, not a drop in that entire building. What he had was a corner cut, so that the wood drying and shrinking over 2 centuries made the joint tighter instead of looser. He built the shrinking in. He put the wood's own worst habit to work holding the house up. What those men were doing has a name. It's called joining with the grain instead of against it, and it is the single skill that separates a corner that lasts 9 winters from a corner that lasts 9 generations. I'll walk you through every piece of it. The reading, the drying, the layout, the cut, the fit, the pin. Every piece except one, because one piece got quietly stripped out of American shop teaching, and it's the piece that makes every other piece work. Without it, a dovetail is just a pretty shape. With it, a corner tightens itself for 200 years while you sleep. It's the difference between the men who built at Cades Cove and the man in the home center aisle buying stronger glue. We'll get there. But we go in order, because the order is the skill, and nobody can bill you for this. No subscription, no license, no cartridge that runs out. Once you can read a corner, you can read it for life, in any wood, with a saw that cost $9 at a yard sale. That's the kind of thing a man ought to own. I'm Solomon Mercer, 7th generation on this ridge in the southern Appalachians. My people came down through the gaps in the 1790s and never went further, and I've got the graves on the knob to prove it. My grandfather Amos was a woodworker and a sawyer both, and from 1936 until the week he died, he kept a shop journal. Leather cover gone soft as cloth, pencil, not ink, because ink froze in the shop. Sawdust packed in the spine so thick you can smell hickory off it in a warm room. Angles, ratios, failures written down honest with the date beside them. He made me promise the methods in that book would not die in a drawer. This video is me keeping that promise, and I'll tell you plain, there are close to 300 more pages of it I haven't gotten to yet. Before we go on, tap subscribe. Not for me. We drag one buried skill back into the daylight around here every week, and you'll want the next one. Here's the shape of it. 7 pieces to a corner that lasts. 6 your great-grandfather would have handed you across a bench without thinking it worth mentioning. The 7th is the one that got lost. We build to it. So the question isn't what we forgot, neighbor. It's who was standing there with a cash register when we forgot, and how you take it back this Saturday. Piece 1. Wood moves. That's the first piece, and I'd wager 9 of 10 men who own a table saw couldn't tell you which direction. Picture your great-grandmother's kitchen table in August. Boards tight, seams you can't catch a fingernail in. Come February, wood stove running 18 hours a day, and there's a gap between 2 boards you could slide a dime into. Same table, nobody touched it. Here's the mechanism. Wood is a bundle of straws standing on end. Water lives in the walls of those straws. Damp air, the walls take water on and get fatter. Dry air, they give it up and get thinner. The straws don't get longer or shorter to speak of, they get fatter and thinner sideways. So wood moves across the grain and barely at all along it. A board 8 feet long stays 8 feet long. That same board, 10 inches wide, does not stay 10 inches wide, and it doesn't move the same amount in both sideways directions. The United States Forest Products Laboratory in Madison, Wisconsin, stood up by the federal government in 1910 and still running today, publishes the numbers in a document called the Wood Handbook, Chapter 4, Table 4-3. The record there lists white oak at roughly 5.5% shrinkage radially against around 10.5% tangentially, green down to bone dry, red oak about 4% against near 8.5%. Tangential is about double radial. The way the growth rings sit in your board decides how much it fights you. Flat sawn moves the most. Quarter sawn moves about half as much. That's not mountain talk. That's a federal laboratory publishing a table. Shop rule of thumb your grandfather ran without ever seeing that table. A foot-wide piece of flat-sawn oak moves something around 1/4 inch across its width between a humid summer and a dry, heated winter, 1/4 inch. That will split a panel, pop a corner, and crack a tabletop right down the middle if you nailed it tight on all 4 sides. Now the honest history of how you stopped knowing this, and I owe you the whole picture, not the fun version. Nobody outlawed grain reading. There was no vote on it. Shop class and industrial arts got trimmed out of a great many American school districts through the 1970s and 80s as budgets tightened and the knowledge wasn't written down anywhere the average man would run across it. It didn't die in a courthouse. It died in a curriculum meeting. The failure mode is the tabletop screwed hard to the apron at 4 corners. Built in July in a damp garage. December comes, the top wants to shrink. The apron won't let it. Something gives. The wood gives, and he blames the wood. Do this today. Find the widest solid board in your house. Look at the end of it. If the rings run straight across the thickness like a stack of pages, that's quarter sawn, and it's calm. If they curve across the face like a bullseye, that's flat sawn, and it will move on you. 10 seconds. Next piece decides whether the wood is even ready to be cut, and this is where most weekend work is lost before the saw comes out. Piece 2. Dry it where it's going to live. Amos wrote a line in the journal in 1954 I've never improved on. Bring the wood in and let it stop arguing. Wood doesn't dry once and stay dry. It's always chasing the air around it, taking moisture on and giving it up until it settles at whatever the room is holding. The Forest Products Laboratory calls that the equilibrium moisture content, and the record puts interior wood in a heated American house somewhere near 6 to 8%, with the country running roughly 6% in the desert Southwest to near 11% down along the Gulf Coast. So if you buy lumber that's been sitting in an unheated warehouse at 12%, cut your joints that afternoon and assemble a chest. That chest spends the next 2 months in your living room drying down to 7. Every bit of that drop comes out of your joints. The joint doesn't fail. The wood leaves. The old method, still the method. Bring the boards inside. Stack them with sticks between so air gets at all 4 faces. Set them near where the finished piece will live. Wait. Inch-thick furniture stock wants a week or 2 before you cut joinery. 2-inch stock wants 2 to 3 weeks because the core of a thick board gives up water far slower than the face does, and the face lies to you. A moisture meter runs $20 to $30 and takes the guessing out. Amos used weight and sound and time. Both work. The meter is faster. Now who profited? Nobody hid the drying rule, and I won't tell you they did. The lumber trade reorganized itself around getting product to you fast, and fast is the opposite of settled. Kiln-dried is real and it's good, but kiln-dried to a warehouse average is not the same as dried to your living room in February. That last stretch has to happen in your house. There was never money in telling a man to go home and wait 2 weeks. That's not a conspiracy, neighbor. That's how markets work. And if there's lumber in your garage you bought and cut the same weekend, that's not on you. Nobody told you. Do this today. Whatever you mean to build this fall, buy the wood now and stack it in the house with sticks between the boards. Costs nothing but patience. Now the wood is calm and you know which way it travels. Next comes the mistake in the title of this video, and it's the one thing separating the 99 from the 1. Piece 3. End grain will not hold. Here's the mistake. 2 boards, square cut, brought together at a right angle, glue on the mating faces, clamp, done. The butt joint. It's what near everybody does, it's what the instructions in the box say to do, and it's the most common corner in an American home. And it's built on a lie about how glue works. Glue does not bond wood the way solder bonds metal. It soaks into the open structure of the fibers and locks in mechanically. Glue long grain to long grain, edge to edge, and it gets down into a dense forest of fiber walls running sideways to the joint. That bond is tremendous. Break a good one and the wood tears out alongside the seam. The glue didn't fail, the wood did. Now flip a board and look at the end. Those are the open ends of all those straws. Pour glue on that and it wicks away down into them, away from the seam, and starves the joint. What's left at the surface is a film with nothing to grip. That's what a butt-jointed corner is. Long grain meeting end grain. Half the joint has almost nothing to hold. Then add movement. One board wants to travel across its width, the other runs the wrong direction and won't go with it. Every season is a small lever working that seam. 9 winters, maybe 11. Then the give in the corner. Your great-grandfather never made that joint for anything that had to last, and he wasn't being fancy. He had no glue he could trust to save him. When your only adhesive is hide glue cooked in a pot on the stove, you learn fast to build corners that hold themselves and treat glue as the last thing, not the first. That's the whole story of traditional joinery in one sentence. It isn't snobbery. It's what you do when the glue is honest about what it can't do. The fix isn't stronger glue. The fix is a corner where wood holds wood. Do this today. Look at the corner of any drawer in your kitchen. Straight seam and a couple of staples, that's a butt joint. Interlocking wedges marching across the corner, somebody built that drawer to outlive you. Pattern break, friend. Everything up to here your great-grandmother could have walked you through waiting on cornbread. The next 3 pieces are the actual craft, the part that came out of the schools, and they build straight to the piece I promised you at the top. Stay with me. Piece 4, the dovetail, and the direction it refuses. Picture your grandfather at the bench, chest side clamped upright, marking gauge scratching a line, and he's not cutting to the line, he's cutting alongside it and leaving the pencil standing. The dovetail is a corner cut into a wedge shape. Tails flare wider at the end than the base. The pins between them narrow. Slide them together, and that corner cannot be pulled apart in the direction the wedges point. Not weakly resists it. Cannot. You'd have to break wood. That's the idea, and it's far older than America. Dovetailed joints turn up in Egyptian furniture and in Chinese work going back thousands of years. Nobody invented it here. It arrived in the hands of German, Scotch-Irish, and Scandinavian settlers who carried it down the Great Wagon Road into these mountains and put it in everything they owned. The angle. 1:6 in softwood, 1:8 in hardwood. For every 6 you go along the board, come over 1. 8:1 in hardstock, because hardwood doesn't need as aggressive a wedge and a steep angle just leaves you fragile short grain at the tip. Lay it out with a sliding bevel or a square and a ruler. Cost him nothing. And here's what the layout is really about, which nobody says plainly enough. Tails go on the piece that gets pulled. Pins on the piece doing the holding. A drawer front gets yanked toward you 10,000 times, so tails on the sides, pins on the front, and every pull that drawer ever gets drives the wedge tighter into its socket. It locks a little more every time somebody opens it for a spoon. And I'll be honest the way Amos was honest with me. I ruined my first 3 sets of dovetails, gaps you could see daylight through, and I packed them with sawdust and glue and figured nobody would notice, and he noticed from across the shop without getting up. He said, "You sawed on the line." Saw beside it. That was the whole correction, and it was right. A dovetail isn't cut to fit. It's cut fat and pared down. Leave the line standing and sneak up on it with a chisel until the pieces go together with hand pressure and a little complaint. If it drops together loose, it's already over, and no glue fixes loose. Now the modern replacement, and I want to be fair here. In the mid-1950s, a Swiss woodworker named Hermann Steiner came up with biscuit joinery, and it was clever engineering. In 1986, an Iowa tool and die maker named Craig Sommerfeld built himself a jig to drill angled pocket holes so he could hide screws in kitchen cabinets at home. He sold it at woodworking shows. The company came together at the end of the 80s. The patent came in 1990, and Wood magazine put it on the cover in January of 1995. From there, it went everywhere. And I'll say this plainly, because I'm not here to make you feel bad about your tools. A pocket screw is a fine fastener. Fast, strong and sheer, holds a face frame beautifully, and there are jobs where it's the right answer. Nobody did anything wrong. They built a good product and sold it well. But look at the transaction. Before, a man owned a skill. After, a man owns a jig and buys screws. The skill takes 8 weekends to get decent at and costs nothing forever. The jig takes 8 minutes, and there's a box of screws to buy on the way home for the rest of his life. Nobody suppressed anything. One of those has a business model and the other doesn't. That's the whole mechanism. If there's a pocket hole jig on your bench right now, friend, that is not on you. They're good at selling. Most people are. Keep it. Use it for what it's good for. And add this back. Do this weekend. 1 dovetail, not a drawer. 1 joint. 2 scraps of pine. No project attached to it. Nothing riding on the outcome. That's the whole assignment. Next, the corner that built these mountains. And it's the one your grandfather could cut with an axe standing in the snow. Piece 5. The half dovetail notch. Back to Cades Cove. Hewn logs flattened on 2 faces with a broadaxe so they'd stack close. Log ends running past each other, and where they cross, a notch. There were several ways to do it here, and each tells you something about the man who cut it. The saddle notch, a cup scooped out of the underside, quick, common in round log country. The square notch, fast and honest, mostly on corn cribs and spring houses, things that didn't have to be perfect. The V-notch, cut like a little pitched roof on top of each log so water ran off both ways, very common in old work through these mountains and the mid-Atlantic. And then the half dovetail. That's the one on the good houses. The half dovetail is what it sounds like. The full dovetail, compound slope cut, top and bottom both, came out of Europe and shows up frequently in Pennsylvania work. Beautiful, demanding, slow. Down here, and over in the Ozarks, the record says it got simplified. Slope on the top face only, bottom cut simple, half the layout, most of the performance. That's a mountain answer if I ever heard one. Why the slope? 3 reasons, all mechanical, none decorative. 1. Water. The top face of that notch slopes down and out toward the outside of the building. Rain that lands in the corner runs out and falls off instead of standing in the joint. Standing water in a corner is what rots a cabin, and it rots it from the corners in. Slope it, and the corner drains itself every time it rains for 200 years. 2. Lock. The angle means the log end cannot be pulled straight out of the corner. The geometry won't allow it. Same principle as the drawer dovetail, scaled up to a wall. 3. And this is the one I want you holding on to. Those logs went up green. Nobody was drying a 20-foot chestnut log to 7% moisture content in 1822. Those walls went up wet and then spent years drying out and shrinking, and the whole wall settled down onto itself under its own weight as they shrank. Now think about what a sloped face does under settling weight. Every bit of that shrinkage, every inch that wall settles, drives those angled faces harder against each other. The wall getting drier makes the corners get tighter. 200 years of shrinking, 200 years of tightening. And the honest thing here, because I'm not your building inspector, you cannot put up a log structure on your property this weekend because you watched a video. Log construction is governed by building code. Code varies by county and state, and permitting for a dwelling is real and exists for reasons. Check your own county before you cut anything structural. And a broadaxe is a serious edge tool. Both hands behind the edge, work secured, go slow. But the principle in that notch fits your hands at any scale. That's the point. Do this weekend. If there's a park, a historic farm, or an old barn within driving distance, go look at the corners. Free. You can name the notch now, and I'd bet you've walked past 40 of them without seeing one. Next, the fastener your great-grandfather used instead of a clamp, and it's a stick. Piece 6. The peg beats the clamp. Frame joinery. A door. A table base. A chair. A barn. One piece with a hole cut in it, one with a tongue cut on it, mortise and tenon, oldest frame joint there is. Most people who make one today glue it, clamp it, and wait. Your great-grandfather bored a hole through the whole assembly and drove a peg, but not a straight hole. Here's the trick. Bore through the mortise cheeks first, dry fit the joint, and mark the center of that hole onto the tenon. Take it apart and move that mark. Not much, about a 1/16 of an inch, toward the shoulder of the tenon. Bore the tenon on the new mark. Taper the leading end of your peg so it can find its way, and drive it. The peg comes through the first cheek straight, hits the tenon hole that's a 1/16 out of line, and has to bend to get through. And as it bends, it drags the tenon deeper into the mortise and slams the shoulder up tight against the other piece. No clamp. The peg is the clamp. And the peg never leaves. It goes on clamping that joint for as long as the wood lasts. That is called drawboring, and it's the reason so much old furniture is still standing sound. This isn't mountain invention, and I'm not asking you to take it on faith. Furniture historians took a pin out of a New England joined chest made somewhere between about 1670 and 1690, and that pin carries a permanent kink from snaking through offset holes 300 and some years ago. The evidence is in the wood. Christopher Schwartz laid the method out in Woodworking magazine in the autumn of 2005, and it's been coming back ever since among people who cut joints by hand. The numbers, a 1/16 of offset is the safe general answer with a 1/4-inch peg, a 32nd in dense hardwood, because hardwood resists the bend and too much offset snaps your peg or splits your tenon, up toward an 1/8 in soft stock or heavy timber. Riven peg, not a store-bought dowel, if you can manage it. Split out of straight-grained oak or hickory so the fibers run the full length instead of running off the side the way they do in a turned dowel. Taper the leading end and leave it a hair oversize. I split my peg the first time I tried this. Snapped off flush inside the tenon. I'd gone a full 1/8 of offset in hard maple because I figured more draw meant more tight. It doesn't. It means more bend than the peg can take. Amos had the answer in the journal and I hadn't read that page yet. Now stop with me a minute, because we've got 6 pieces on the bench and I want to name what they have in common before I give you the 7th. Not one of these methods stopped working. The dovetail didn't get weaker. The notch didn't quit shedding water. Wood didn't start moving in a new direction. Every one of them works exactly as well in 2026 as it did in 1822. What changed is they stopped being profitable to teach. Each one lives in a man's hands and costs nothing to use again. No cartridge, no refill. Nothing to sell a man who already knows how, except maybe a better chisel every 20 years. When shop class came out of the schools, the handoff broke, and the people left explaining how to join two pieces of wood were the people with something in the box. Nobody had to bury anything. It just stopped getting handed down, and what fills a silence is whatever has an advertising budget. Now, the seventh piece, the one I promised at the top and made you wait for. Everything I've taught you so far is built on you not knowing this one thing. Once you have it, you'll see it in every joint in this video at once, and you won't be able to unsee it. Here it is. Cut the corner so that shrinking tightens it. That's it. That's the whole thing. It's called the draw. Wood is going to shrink. Not negotiable, not preventable, and no finish stops it, only slows it. Wood keeps giving up and taking on water forever, chasing whatever the room is holding, season after season. Every joint you make is going to get shrunk on. So there are only two kinds of corners. Ones where shrinkage makes the joint looser, and ones where shrinkage makes it tighter. A butt joint with glue in it is the first kind. The wood pulls away from the seam, the bond gets a little more stressed every winter, and nothing in that corner is working to take up the slack. It only ever gets worse. Now look back with me. The half-dovetail notch. Green logs going up wet, shrinking for decades, the whole wall settling under its own weight, and every angled face driving harder into its mate as it goes. Shrinkage tightens it. The drawbird peg. That peg is bent. It's been bent since the day it went in, and it is trying to straighten out, permanently, forever. It is a spring. As the tenon shrinks and the glue crystallizes and the years go by, the peg keeps pulling. It's got draw left in it 100 years from now. Shrinkage tightens it. The dovetail in a drawer. Wedges seated in sockets, and every pull that drawer gets drives them home. Shrinkage across the tails narrows them slightly, and the pull takes it right back up. It doesn't come apart because it mechanically cannot come apart in that direction, whether the glue is alive or dead. 3 joints, different scale, different century, different tools, same idea underneath all 3. Build a corner that has somewhere left to go. That's the piece that got lost, not the dovetail. You can buy a jig and cut 100 dovetails this afternoon and still not know this. The shape is not the skill, the draw is the skill. And this is the honest reason glue took the blame all these years. Modern yellow glue is strong stuff, but it's a plastic, and under long steady stress a plastic creeps, meaning it slowly gives, and a glue line under seasonal stress for 11 years surrenders ground. Hide glue, cooked from collagen because it was all there was, is not stronger, about the same, but heat it and wet it and it lets go, so a joint made with it can be taken apart and repaired 100 years on and glued back up. That's why nearly every surviving antique in this country can be restored, and a great many things built in 1998 cannot. The old glue wasn't better, it was honest about being temporary, so the men who used it built corners that didn't depend on it. They built the draw in. The glue was insurance. The wood was the joint. Now here's what I want you to do this Saturday, and it is small on purpose. Go get a piece of poplar or pine, 1x4, about $4 at any lumber yard. Cut 2 pieces 8 inches long. Cut a mortise in one and a tenon on the other, and don't be careful, it doesn't have to be pretty. Bore your peg hole through the mortise cheeks. Dry fit, mark the tenon, take it apart, move that mark 1/16 toward the shoulder, bore it there. Whittle a peg from an oak scrap, taper the nose, drive it home with no glue anywhere, then try to pull it apart. $4 and an hour. You'll have made a joint that outlasts most of the furniture in your house, with a drill and a chisel, and you'll never again believe the answer to a failing corner is stronger glue. This was never about a dovetail or a notch, neighbor. It was about being a man who can make what he needs, repair what he owns, and look at a broken thing and know why. Your great-grandfather wasn't clever, he was taught. The only thing that happened between him and you is that somewhere along the line a hand reached out with a chisel in it and nobody was standing there to take it. There is now. So tell me down below, Did your grandfather have a shop? What tool was on the wall of it? Not what he bought, what he had, hanging where he could reach it. A brace and bit, a draw knife, a froe, a wooden plane with his initials burned in the toe. Name it. And say what happened to it, because half of you will say you don't know, and that's the whole story right there. The answer that gets the most replies is the one I build the next video around. Next time we're going after the froe and the riving break. Why a split board is stronger than a sawn board of the same wood. Why every shingle and chair rung and basket splint in these mountains was split and never sawn, and the stretch of years when the circular sawmill made the whole method look like poverty instead of engineering. Tap subscribe if you haven't. There's near 300 pages left in that book, and I mean to pull every last one of them back into the daylight before I'm done. Keep the old ways, they kept us.